Welcome to ZNS Network's live coverage of the state funeral of Sir Clifford Darling, former Governor General, Cabinet Minister, and Speaker of the House of Assembly. Now here's your host, Jerome Sawyer.
His Excellency Sir Clifford Darling, the fourth Bahamian-born Governor General of the Bahamas, will be remembered today for his service to his country and people. 8 days after he passed away, the nation will stop today to mourn his passing and also to celebrate his accomplishments at his state funeral. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to live coverage of the state funeral here on the ZNS Network. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Over the next few hours, we will bring you live coverage of the events of this state funeral, from the final viewing of his body at Parliament to the service at Zion Baptist Church on East and Shirley Streets to his interment. Sir Clifford was sworn in as Governor General at Government House on January 2nd, 1992, succeeding His Excellency the late Sir Henry Taylor. He retired on January 1st. Sir Clifford had served as Speaker of the House of Assembly from 1977 until November 13, 1991, when he resigned. A former Progressive Liberal Party Member of Parliament for Angliston, Sir Clifford was born on February 6, 1922 at Acklands Island to Charles and Amelia Darling. He attended the Acklands Public School and public schools in New Providence. The former taxicab driver served as General Secretary of the Bahamas Taxicab Union for 8 years and as President for 10. In the early 50s, Sir Clifford bargained with hotels for better treatment for taxi drivers. Sir Clifford, as President, helped to lead a general strike in January 1958. With Sir Clifford's help, the agreement among hotel, tour services and taxi operators was reached. Sir Clifford was an early member of the PLP. He served as a senator from January 1964 to January 1967, when in a general election he was elected to the House of Assembly for the Angliston constituency. He served from January 1967 to October 1969, when he was appointed to the Cabinet as Minister of State. In November 1971, he was named Minister of Labor and National Insurance. He was responsible for the introduction of the National Insurance Program on October 7, 1974. Sir Clifford was re-elected to the House for the Angliston constituency in 1977 and was elected Speaker of the House. He was also knighted by the Queen that same year. In the general elections of 1982 and 87, Sir Clifford was re-elected as a Member of Parliament for the Angliston constituency and re-elected as Speaker. He was a stalwart councillor, the highest honour that can be bestowed on a member of the Progressive Liberal Party. He was also a member of Zion Baptist Church, of the Masonic Prince Hall Lodge, and of the Improved Benevolent Protective Order of Elks in the World. Sir Clifford passed away on December 27th. He was 89 years old, months shy of his 90th birthday. I would like to, first of all, welcome my in-studio guests who will, throughout this broadcast, help you to remember and reflect on the life of the late Sir Clifford Darling. Mr. Arlington Miller, a former trade unionist. Welcome, sir, to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Also, Mr. Philip Smith, a former Member of Parliament. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Our ZNS team is in the field as well, helping us to capture all of the day's events. We will begin, first of all, with Mr. Anthony Newbold, who is at the House of Assembly, where the body of Sir Clifford is lying in state. He's awaiting the arrival of the family for the final viewing. Anthony, good morning.
Thank you, Jerome. Good morning. All systems in place here at the House of Assembly. The mortal remains of Sir Clifford still lying in state here in the foyer of the House of Assembly, where he spent 25 years of his life. We're waiting the arrival, of course, of the family, led by the matriarch, Igrid Lady Darling. Once she arrives, they will spend a few minutes viewing the mortal remains before it's transported to the church. But I'll tell you some more about what's happening here at the House, about Sir Cliff and the time that he spent here. As I said, 25 years in this place, another 3 in the other place, the upper chamber, the Senate. But again, all systems are go here. A special bier constructed that will transport the remains of Sir Cliff to the church for burial. And so we're just awaiting the arrival of the family before procession begins to take the remains to the church and the start of the funeral service. Jerome?
Thank you very much. We'll, of course, go back to Anthony once the family arrives, as you would have heard him say there. Now, today's funeral services will take place at Zion Baptist Church. Sir Cliff was a member of that church for many, many years. Of course, the state funeral will be taking place at the church. Our Shanique Miller is standing by at the church this morning. She's going to give us a roundup now of what is happening at the church, even at this hour. Shanique?
Well, good morning to you, Jerome. I'm here now just facing Shirley Street, and just to give you an idea, in about a few minutes, the procession will be leaving the House of Assembly, going on to Bay Street, and also coming here onto Elizabeth Avenue, making its way here to Shirley Street. Now, of course, that'll include the Prime Minister, Chief Justice, members of Parliament, senators, police, and a number of other officials, as well as civil servants as a part of that procession, as well as family members. Now, outside the church here, if you can just sort of walk with me, you will see that there is a line forming now. It's probably the shortest it's been all morning. The line stretched all the way across the balcony here and even down the stairs as people are continuing to try and make their way into the church. It has a seating capacity of about 1,000, and so people started coming from about 8 o'clock this morning trying to get themselves a seat. So many people want to come and say a final farewell to Sir Clifford. Many describe him as a nice man, a man of the people with the people's interest. Of course, we all know him as somebody who was a fighter for the common man, a taxi driver, and of course who elevated to Governor General. And so this morning many people are here, hundreds already in the church, including foreign diplomats, local diplomats. A short time ago, Dame Marguerite Pindling was escorted in the building. We had former members of Parliament flying from all over the country coming here to be here as well. One of them, Philip Bethel. Just a number of people here coming in and trying to definitely just get themselves a seat, and even just line here the wall of the church, or perhaps the opposite side of the street, just to sort of have their glimpse at history, and of course to say goodbye to Sir Clifford. Now I'm here with Clothy Lockhart, who is a public relations officer here at Zion Baptist Church on Eastern Shirley Street. First of all, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, I want to say that Sir Clifford attended this church for more than 50 years, perhaps more than 60 years. He wasn't just an attendee. He was very, very involved. And I know, of course, something that Baptists are very, very proud of is the fact that he was the first Bahamian Governor General to be Baptist.
That's right, exactly right. This is really a bittersweet moment for us this morning because, you know, as Baptists, we believe that blessed are they who die in the Lord because they're just resting from their labor for their reward. We're taught to rejoice when someone dies, and so we're pleased this morning. It's a sweet moment for us, but the human element gives us reason to mourn. He's been with us for so many years, and he's served with our first Bahamian elected pastor, the late Reverend Talmadge Sands. He served with the late Reverend Dr. Charles Clifford Smith, and of course he served with our current pastor, the Reverend Terrence Morrison.
Yeah, and of course, quickly, Jerome, I want to let you know that, of course, again, as I said, Sir Clifford wasn't just an attendee. He was also an usher, and very proud to do that.
That's right, a humble man. Despite the high office he held, he served as a doorkeeper in the house of God.
Okay, there you have it. Of course, we will continue our coverage from here at about 11 o'clock or so. It's definitely when the procession starts to make its way onto Shirley Street. But for now, we're going to send it back to you.
Thank you very much, Shanique Miller, outside Zion Baptist Church. We are back in studio as we await the arrival of Sir Clifford's family at the House of Assembly for the final viewing. Gentlemen, we're going to start our discussion about Sir Clifford Darling at this point. Mr. Arlington Miller, I'm going to begin with you. A lot of people will know Sir Clifford from his time in Parliament, as a member of Parliament, as a Speaker of the House, but really his entrance into the history books, into the development of the Bahamas began so many years before then, as a taxi driver, as General Secretary, and eventually as President of the Union. I want to talk about his early days and what he meant to the taxi cab union and to trade unionists around the country.
Well, I started to follow Sir Clifford involvement in the trade union movement in 1958. At that time I was in the light service, and I was on vacation in Andros when the strike took place.
This is the general strike.
The general strike in 1958, and I started to follow Sir Clifford involvement in trade union ever since. Of course, after I left the light service in 1960 and joined the Customs Department and became a member of the Bahamas Public Services Union, I then get to know Sir Clifford as a trade unionist and follow his movement, and met with him on several occasions for that, and found him to be a straightforward person, a man of principle. No matter what happened, he never dropped his principle. You know, some of us, we hot today, cold tomorrow.
Depending on what the issue is.
Yes, but Sir Clifford will compromise, but he never dropped that principle. He was somebody you can always talk with and sit down, and he would advise you the best of his ability and would take your advice as well. So I follow him from that time, and then he became involved in politics. Well, at that time, everybody were PLPs. Every unionist and worker and so on were PLPs, following the PLP and those involved. And so I followed him straight up to the time that he became Governor General, and then I had to pay a visit to him when we had outside trade union leaders come in, and we will ask him for an audience and so on. So I get to know him very well.
Mr. Philip Smith, as Mr. Miller said, he, as a trade unionist, it was almost natural for him to get into politics. He entered as a senator from 1964 to 67, and then was sort of in that 67 win of the PLP. And he retained his seat from then onward. I mean, what does that say about him as a member of Parliament?
Well, I think the single most important thing about Sir Clifford was the fact that in every interaction he had with me over the years that I knew him, you always felt as if he was being done a favor because you were talking with him, you were asking him for his opinion. And that's exactly what he carried as a trade unionist, what he carried as a representative, as a candidate with people. When he interacted with voters, they knew that they were important, that he was asking to be their instrument, to be their servant in the very real terms of the word. Now this came about because of obviously his birth in Acklands, his early life in New Providence, his time on the contract when he got involved very much as a liberation fighter for the rights of Bahamian workers who were on contract. When he came back home, the same fight was required here because the Bahamas of the 40s and 50s was very much one divided on racial lines. There was the ruling white oligarchy, and there were some from either who were colored or black, as the terms we use there, who had some involvement. But the vast majority of the black people of the Bahamas had no involvement. And so Sir Cliff saw that there was a need for him to earn a living, but also to help his brothers and sisters achieve their liberation within their own homeland. And this is what stayed with him throughout his entire life. So as a liberation fighter, he recognized it is the people that is important. It is service to them. And when they feel and know that they are free, then he has done his job. And I only hope that more and more young people who look to a political life will emulate that and go into political life because they want to serve, not because they want to be served.
He holds a distinction in the country I think that nobody else has. He was a senator, a member of Parliament, member of the Cabinet, Speaker of the House, Governor General. All of these positions he held at one time. But yet, he remained such a humble individual. I mean, from the very first time that I met him, up until the last time I interviewed him, he always seemed to be the same as you would have heard someone, a member of the church say, a very humble individual, and as you've said, Mrs. Smith, seeming to be always in service to the people.
Well, he never forget, never, where he came from. You know, there are many of us who are out island brothers and sisters, and the moment we manage to come in Nassau and get a good job, we introduce ourselves as a Nassauian. We says, I born right here. I met a lot of people from my own home, Andros, who after they get a good job and was able to buy a suit above $50, they start talking about they born right here. But he never forget Auckland's. He never tried to say, no, I wasn't born in Andros, I born in the States, or I born in Nassau. So Clifford was an unusual person, very unusual, because he went to the halls of Parliament and then to Government House and so on. We visited him at Government House, and he didn't act as if he was the Governor General. He acted as if he was one of us, small man down here. That's the good thing about him.
Mr. Smith, what was he like as a politician? In his days in politics, you're talking about now a fledgling progressive Liberal Party, in that this party is just coming to government with majority rule. He is, he would have sort of gotten his fame somewhat in the general strike prior to that. But what was he like as a politician, as a minister in government?
Reluctant.
Reluctant?
Yeah. Sir Cliff was a trade unionist, and he wanted, that was his life. And then, because of his leadership of the taxi union and the tremendous service to taxi unions efforts in the late 57 did, and his leadership in the 58 general strike, the party, because he was a member, asked him to be one of its first two senators with the new constitution in '64. He didn't want it. But he was told, no, you're in this thing, you have this responsibility, you represent this group of persons, and you are a paramount representative.
Almost a victim of circumstance.
Absolutely. Then when candidates were being canvassed for the '67 election, Sir Cliff didn't think himself worthy. He had this image of what a representative ought to be, and he thought that it required this vast formal education, etc. He was disabused of that, and he was fortunate in going into Angliston, because Angliston was where lots of people from Acklands, from Crooked Island, had come to live, and many of them were Masons and Elks, and as you would have said in your introduction, he was a Mason, he was an Elk, and so he was very much at home. So he agreed to do it because he didn't have to say to people, I'm something special. He could say to them, I'm the same fellow you know from all of these other activities. And he received an overwhelming support in that election and in subsequent elections. And he did so because he was at all times accessible. When Sir Cliff was minister, you wanted to see him, he was available. It wasn't a matter of, I'm busy. He was available. Now, if he had an appointment, obviously you had to get in line with the appointment. But if he didn't have appointments, he was there. When he was speaker, all of us knew that he understood the role of speaker, in that he ensured that the processes were in place for the government to be able to get its agenda through, while ensuring that those opposed to the government had full rein to express their opposing views. He did not see himself as a controller of the House, but rather as a facilitator. So he encouraged the debate, and every member of the House might attack him occasionally because they felt that they needed to attack somebody. But afterwards they'd say, you know, the one thing you got to say, whenever you attack in Sir Cliff, you feel bad because you know he don't deserve it. He was a gentleman. He was a kind soul. He was, as Mr. Miller said, very much a man of principle. you knew what Cliff Darling stood for at all times, and you knew that that is what a good man would stand for.
Eventually, he went on to serve in the high office as Governor General, and seemed to bring even that, as you said, Mr. Miller, that humility to Government House, being accessible and being the person that almost lived next door to you.
Yeah, we in the trade union movement was very proud when a trade unionists were able to be appointed Governor General. Well, of course, some of us look forward to go up there as well. I mean, if one went,
That should open the door for everyone.
you know, that's the stepping stone. But we were very proud when he went to Government House. Of course, I also met Sir Cliff when he was married to his first wife. His first wife was Hazel Wells from Abaco, and Hazel's sister, Edith, was married to B.G. Strong, who was the first principal keeper that I worked with in the light service. And so we become very, very close, that family. And so I met him through her.
We are still awaiting the arrival of the family of the late Sir Clifford Darling. I understand that his wife, Lady Darling, has arrived. We are going to check in now at the House of Assembly, where Anthony Newbold is standing by with his wife, of course, signal the arrival of his family for the final viewing. Anthony? We are still looking at pictures of his wife, Agrid Lady Darling, as well as his children, who are coming in for the final viewing within the House of Assembly. His body, of course, has been in the foyer of the House for several days. This, of course, is a very important part of a funeral of this sort, as it certainly gives the family an opportunity to say their farewells in private, as the remainder of the day will be a very public ceremony to our cameras and to many others, and so there is not a lot of private time for the family at this point. Our Anthony Newbold is at the House of Assembly now. We're going to swing over to him. Anthony?
As Speaker of the House. As was said earlier, one of those jobs that Sir Cliff didn't necessarily want. He just wanted to make his contribution in a regular way as a regular member of Parliament. Again, members of the family now continuing to come in to view the mortal remains. Our colleague, Cyan Thompson, granddaughter of Sir Clifford, and other members of the family as they enter the chambers of the House of Assembly. There are just 6 of that original class of 71 left who came into the House of Assembly with Sir Clifford. You remember there were 18 of them. Sir Lyndon, of course, the Honorable A.D. Hanna, Cecil Wallace Whitfield, James Jimmy Shepherd, Warren Lavarity, Preston Albury, George Thompson, Clarence Bain, Randall Fox, Sir Alvin Brennan, Edmund Moxey, Clifford Darling, Elwood Donaldson, Maurice Moore, Jeffrey Thompson, Curtis Macmillan, Uriah McPhee, and of course Arthur Folks, the 18 who, of course, along with the support of Randall Fox and Sir Alvin Brannan, allowed the PLP to begin governing the country. There are just 6 of them left. As I said, the Honorable A.D. Hanna, Warren Labarty, Edmund Moxey, Elwood Donaldson, Maurice Moore, and Sir Arthur Folkes. The only ones left from that class of 1967. Again, family members continue to arrive and view the remains of Sir Clifford. I can tell you that the cabinet ministers are already here, as well as the honorary pallbearers, and they are Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Brent Simonet, the Honorable Orville A.T. Turnquest, Minister of National Security, the Honorable Earl DeVoe, Minister of the Environment, and Senator the Honorable Dion Folkes, Minister of Labor and Social Development. Also, honorary pallbearers, as we see the Prime Minister arrive, and just in front of me is the Leader of the Opposition, also part of the honorary pallbearers, Mr. Philip Davis, the Deputy Leader of the Progressive Liberal Party, as Mr. Ingram arrives and greets his ministers. Also, Mrs. Glenys Hannah Martin, who, of course, is representing the constituency of Angliston, represented so ably by Sir Clifford for so many years. Mr. Obadiah Wilscombe, the MP for West End and Bimini, and Mr. D. Shane Gibson, the Member of Parliament for Golden Gates, all members of the honorary pallbearers. In this procession, we will have motorcyclists of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, followed by police cars, and then the national flag of the Bahamas, followed by the Royal Bahamas Defense Force Standard and the Royal Bahamas Police Force Standard, followed by the firing party and the combined bands of the Royal Bahamas Police Force and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Next will, of course, be the coffin bearing the remains of Sir Clifford. Again, this is a special one, special bier that was built by members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force back in 2007. Lieutenant Commander Michael Sweeting and Senior Lieutenant Arlington Williams decided that it was a good idea to reinforce what it meant to be a member of the military community and continue to demonstrate and show that respect even in death, or especially in death. And so they envisioned a special bier that eventually was built by leading mechanic Earl Roberts and Petty Officer Basil Miller. They were the primary project personnel, and they ensured the construction of that bier that will transport the remains of Sir Clifford to the church where the funeral service will begin in about 25 minutes from now. Again, the procession will travel east on Bay Street to Elizabeth Avenue, south on Elizabeth Avenue to Shirley Street, west on Shirley Street to east and Shirley Streets, where funeral services will be held for Sir Clifford. Again, we are looking at some of the members of the Royal Bahamas and Royal Bahamas Defense Force, Royal Bahamas Police Force standard bearers who will lead the procession east on Bay Street. As you imagine, and as would normally be the case, the streets are lined with visitors and residents of the Bahamas wanting to see this procession, and again, some of them, because we're talking about the residents now, as we see the Minister of Labour greet the Member of Parliament for St. Cecilia and other members of what will be that honorary pallbearers. They want to pay their final respects to Sir Clifford as well. Again, that will happen momentarily as we look at the President of the Senate, Senator Lynn Holowesko, and other senators, again, all part of the procession that will take the mortal remains of Sir Clifford to the church for the state funeral service. The doors of the House of Assembly, where again Sir Clifford spent some 34 years, a lot of it doing a job that he didn't necessarily want to do, but as was always the case, as we look at today's Speaker, the Honorable Alvin Smith, Clerk David Forbes, Sir Cliff spent 24 years doing the job because that is what was required of him. The Honorable Alvin Smith, along with David Forbes and Lee Ramming, two of his clerks in the House of Assembly. Again, the mortal remains to be transported on a special bier constructed and built by the Royal Bahamas Defense Force from a project initiated in 2007. Members of the judiciary and other officials all will be a part of the procession. Includes the combined bands of the police and defense force, as we look at members of the Customs Department, as all of the departments are represented here this morning. And about now, the parade commander, if you will, is calling the parade to order. As I said, the members of all of the government departments, as we see members of the Customs Department, and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. You will see detachments of the police force the Defense Force, Her Majesty's Prison, the Department of Immigration, Bahamas Customs, and the Road Traffic Department. All of those departments will be represented as they prepare now to remove the remains of Sir Clifford from the house. With the standard Bahamas flag, and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force standard, as well as the police standard. Now the coffin with the remains of Sir Clifford being taken from the House of Assembly. Members of the Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Force lifting the coffin that is draped in aquamarine black and gold, colors, of course, of the Bahamian flag, as befits the national hero that we're saying goodbye to today. We expect that this procession, which will also include obviously Lady Darling, the family, will take about 15 minutes, which would be about the time we need to get to the church. Again, the Bahamas flag, followed by the standard of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Again, we watch the combined members of the Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Force taking the mortal remains of Sir Clifford to the bier that will transport him to the church. The honorary pallbearers again are the Honorable T. Brent Simonet, Honorable Orville Turnquest, the Honorable Earl DeVoe, Senator the Honorable Dion Fowkes, Mr. Philip Davis, Mrs. Glenys Hannah Martin, Mr. Obadiah Wilchcombe, and Mr. D. Shane Gibson, all members of the honorary pallbearers. Again, detachments from the police force, the defense force, Her Majesty's Prison, the Department of Immigration, Bahamas Customs Department, and the Road Traffic Department, all will be members of this procession that will include the President of the Court of Appeal. Well, before we get to the President of the Court of Appeal, the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice, Cabinet Ministers, the Leader of the Opposition, as the procession begins to wend its way slowly. As the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition and members of the Cabinet await the start of the procession, and members now gently place the body of Sir Clifford on the special bier for transport, again constructed by members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force as a way of paying final tribute to members of the fraternity who they felt should be respected and treated with dignity, especially in death. Reverend Billy Higgs and the President of the Senate, Senators, as the honorary pallbearers, prepare to take their places. Again, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Orville Turnquest, the Honorable Earl DeVoe, Senator the Honorable Dion Fowkes, as well as Mr. Philip Davis, Mrs. Glenys Hannah Martin, who again represents Angliston, the constituency of Sir Clifford. In fact, his name is synonymous with Angliston in most people's minds. Mr. Obadiah Wilchcombe and Mr. D. Shane Gibson. As they prepared to begin the procession that will include the President of the Court of Appeal and the Black Rod of the Senate, as we see members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the President of the Senate, the Mace of the House of Assembly, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, members of the Judiciary, members of the Senate, members of the House of Assembly, the Secretary to the Cabinet, Anita Bernard, Commissioner of Police Ellison Greenslade, Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force Roderick Bowe, and of course the detachments from the various departments as we look at the Commissioner and Commodore. MPs Alfred Sears and Alfred Gray, Dr. B.J. Nottage, Ryan Pinder, Kenneth Russell, Picewell Forbes, Verne Grant and Frank Smith, Melanie Griffin, Edison Key, Sidney Colley, Carl Bethel, again now the procession begins to make its way east on Bay Street, with the flag of the Bahamas, followed by the standards of the Royal Bahamas Police Force and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and the special bear with the remains of Sir Clifford. We'll travel east to Elizabeth Avenue, south on Elizabeth Avenue, west on Shirley Street to Shirley and East Street to Zion Baptist Church. Again, Deputy Prime Minister Brent Simonet, followed by Ministers Turnquest, DeVoe, and Folks. Philip Davis, Glennis Hannah Martin, Obadiah Wilchcombe, and D. Shane Gibson, the other members of the honorary pallbearers, as well as members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And you're looking at cabinet ministers, followed by members of parliament. The black rod of the Senate, Senate President Lynn Holowesko. The mace of the House and Speaker Alvin Smith, clocks, Maurice Tynes, Lee Ramming, Reverend Billy Higgs, other members of Parliament, Sidney Colley and Melanie Griffin, Kenneth Russell, and Alfred Sears, Alfred Gray, Commissioner of Police Ellison Greenslade, Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force Roderick Bowe, members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, followed by some members of the combined police and defense force, and members of the Customs Department, preceded by representatives of immigration, who all now are passing through Rawson Square, Parliament Square. Detachment of police, followed by defense force. and a special contingent of Royal Bahamas Defense Force Rangers as we watch members of the customs of the prison department and this procession that seems to be in full swing now, making its way to the church. Back to you, Jerome.
Thank you very much, Anthony Newbold, at the House of Assembly, where the body of Sir Cliff was viewed for the final time by members of his family. Also, Prime Minister Ingram and other members of the cabinet and members of Parliament within that procession. Sir Cliff, of course, spending 34 years within those hallowed halls, 14 years as a speaker, 3 years as a senator, 34 years in total, a member of Parliament included in that as well. We're going to be joining our Shanique Miller in just a few moments at Zion Baptist Church, where that procession is headed right now. Gentlemen, I want to talk very quickly, though, about Sir Clifford's early days. In the early 50s, during his time within the taxi cab union, hotels at that time had their own buses which were moving guests from the airport directly to the hotels, leaving little, if any, work for taxi drivers at the time. He agitated to put a stop to that, everything reaching a boiling point in 1957 when, as head of the taxi cab union, he led a blockade which closed down the airport, which eventually led to the general strike of 1958. This was one of those major events in history which really led, which was, I guess, this and Black Tuesday, in many respects, was one of the, was, I guess, among those events which really led and helped to solidify majority rule in 1967. But that general strike really was a turning point for the country, and I want to talk a little bit about that for a few moments.
Well, I'm sure the general strike had something to do with it. I think that is the first time since 1942 when the workers really rebel because of the treatment that they thought was being meted out to them at that time. They thought it was completely unfair for the tour drivers and the tour companies to have all the jobs, and the taxi drivers had to take the crumbs. And they reached that stage where they feel that, no, we want a slice of the bread. And led by a person like Sir Clifford, he decided that we will block everything. And that is when the taxi cabs blocked the road, and that turned into a general strike because the masses then supported the taxi drivers.
But this also spoke to, at that time, to the strength of the trade unions at that point as well, because you're talking now about a general strike, which certainly brought the country to a halt.
Well, I think that the general strike was, to a great extent, not so much a matter of the structural organization of the movement, but rather a recognition by workers generally that things are terrible, and they really were. There was no respect offered the worker, and what I find most interesting is that the rights of the workers generally were being led by businessmen, taxi drivers. They were entrepreneurs. They owned their means to convey people. And they, because they were not of the ruling oligarchy, were being opposed by the associates of the oligarchy. And it was because of their structured, disciplined effort that trade unionists, the hotel workers and others were able to say to workers, we could actually do this. We could actually earn respect, we could earn better in return for our labor if we work together and if we show that we're dead serious. So very much a matter of independent spirits, taxi union, working with the cooperative, which a trade union is, together because of the commonality of the opposing force.
And at the helm of all of this, from the taxi union side, you have Sir Clifford, or at that time, a Clifford Darling, a young man who really had come from humble backgrounds, out of Acklands in New Providence, taxi driver, made his way into the taxi union as general secretary, and now is the union president, seemingly leading this movement. You think at that time he really had any indication or idea what it is that he was leading and what was about to happen?
Well, he had, like I said, he had the principle. The principle was, I am not going to take it any longer. And he came back from the United States with that zeal.
He would have been involved in the civil rights movement.
That's right.
And to a certain degree.
And he was able to encourage the less experienced drivers in the labor movement that we can get somewhere if we stick together. You know, the strength of any country is in the worker. If the workers stick together, but the big problem is the workers don't stick together because everybody wants to lead. But in that time, everybody look at then Clifford Darling, later Clifford, as the leader. And everybody, when he said move, everybody was prepared to move. I don't have anything to take home to my family this evening, but if Clifford say, park my car, I'm going to park it.
I'm going to do it.
If, you see, if the worker have the confidence in that leader, you already won your battle. You see, you got to have, but there are some leaders who they lead here, but behind the door is another leadership. See,
interesting.
They don't carry through. But they don't. When they speak to the group out here, and the group agree with something, there are those who go behind the door and say something else.
But Sir Cliff certainly, as you said, was a principled man.
That's right.
One of the things we want to just advise our audience of what has happened. The procession seems to be now on Shirley Street, making its way to Zion Baptist Church. We're going to check in with our Shanique Miller in just a few moments as that procession winds down to the church for the start of the ceremony. Pardon me, for the church service. I want to fast forward a bit. November 1971, he was named Minister of Labour and National Insurance, responsible for the introduction of the National Insurance Program on October 7th, 1974. That's a very significant accomplishment, and I don't think a lot of Bahamians even realize the role that Sir Clifford was playing at that time, and really what national insurance meant and continues to mean for the country today.
Well, if you look at the early writings of the Progressive Liberal Party, starting with its platform, which was published in 1953, well ahead of the potential 56 election, you see the language of cooperatives, the language of responsibility, the language of a commitment to provide for the necessities of life, that a government exists to serve the interests of people, not the other way around, that the economy exists to serve people, not the other way around. And when the party came into government in '67, obviously there were some very basic things that needed to be done. There was the commitment to vastly expanding the capacity to educate our people. So schools were being built all over the place, and as that essential infrastructure was becoming reality, then there was the focus on putting in place the social infrastructure so that workers were protected with good labor legislation, so that the rights of the individual was enshrined, and that the right to a reasonably secure old age was provided for. And so yes, very much a powerful piece of social legislation, but part of a train of philosophy that says that people are what matter.
Just to bring you up to speed, the body of Sir Clifford appears to arrive at the church there at Zion and Eastern Shirley. We're just going to check in with our Shanique Miller. I'm going to see whether she's ready in just a few minutes. But Mr. Smith, I want to go back to that discussion about national insurance. Was it by design that Clifford Darling was Minister of Labor at that point and this key piece of social legislation and this key social structure was set up? I mean, it seemed like it made sense to have him as minister. I mean, he would have certainly been very influential in the labor movement in the early days, but certainly was it by design or just he happened to be the minister at that time?
Well, keep in mind that when you want something to happen in government, if you put in place someone who has a passion for it, you're likely to have it succeed, because public officers will appreciate that the passion is real, and then public officers will find the means to make the passion reality. And with Sir Clifford at the helm, there was no doubt in the mind of anyone in the ministry that certainly the minister was serious. The government had already indicated its absolute commitment to this program, and when elements were being discussed, they would have been guided or to keep on focus, to provide the structure that could eventually provide the means so that citizens in their old age would be cared for. And Cliff, without question, had, as Mr. Miller has indicated and as everyone knows, that principal passion for the workers' needs. And it's a marvelous institution, national insurance.
It certainly is. He also became Speaker of the House. 1977, he would have succeeded Sir Arlington Butler, I think, as Speaker, but he also would have served as Deputy at one point, I think you said to me.
Yes, well, in 1967, when Sir Alvin Brennan was elected Speaker as part of, as Mr. Miller indicated, this effort at creating a first PLP government, and Sir Cliff served as Deputy Speaker until his elevation to Cabinet. And again, part of that whole process where he had no difficulty taking on whatever role the team felt he was best suited for and to achieve. And he had this appreciation of loyalty, the appreciation of teamwork, the appreciation of the value of the team, and the fact that each part of the element of producing that ultimate good.
It would seem almost like he did it in reverse. You go from being a minister to taking now on this role as Speaker of the House. I mean, Speaker of the House is very important, but I particularly in today's environment, I can't see many ministers agreeing to now become Speaker of the House, having led your own ministry, you would have been influential in bringing this key piece of legislation, this social change called national insurance, and now you're going to take on a less public role in many respects.
But keep in mind now that Mr. Butler had been in a contentious matter as Speaker.
Yes, we're talking about Arlington Butler.
Yes.
Okay.
And what the governing party after the 1967 election wanted to achieve was stability, reliability, someone who would respect the rules, someone who would not allow his personal views to override the interests of the House and those two capacities, the government to have its way and the opposing forces to have their say. And everyone all around knew that Cliff would be a steady hand, a reliable hand, and that you would not have unnecessary contention, but also that he was a man of great strength that you couldn't push around. So he had all of the elements. And when, again, the team, Cliff's response would have been, I may not want the job, but I recognize that I would be the one suited to it.
Interesting you would say that.
Yeah, because see, a good leader appoint the person who's going to get the job done. Now, there are many of us who get an appointment And that's all we need, the appointment. But when you get the appointment, you got to make sure that the people you assigned to do the job is doing it. And that was Cliff. He might not have had a couple certificate from the University of Georgetown to put up on the wall, but paper can't work. You have to put somebody there who have the interests, you see? And because he had the interest and wanted to make sure that the work was done, he was the right person for the job.
Certainly, it would be a testament to the amount of time that he held the position, the fact that he was always re-elected. I mean, from 77 up until the time of his resignation to go on to Government House.
Well, you got to understand that he was put in a place where that place was designed and wasn't any use of somebody running in that area. He could have gone to England, and when the election over come back, he would have been elected. That place was saturated with Auckland's and Crooked Island people.
So he was a natural fit.
Yeah. Apart from that, he was a people's man. Might not give the people a penny, but he visited them every Sunday. He go through the area, and that is what Bahamians want. They don't want you to take them for granted. You come to me now, election time, and when the election over, you don't want to see me no more till election time again. Sir Cliff was not like that. Sir Cliff was a people's man. He go through there, he hug up the old woman, he pick up the little baby, and so on. Well, that's what people want. And that is why you would find that other people have to win election for some people. Because they don't.
Two cards at the mind. You would have said someone else. Mr. Smith, what was he like within the Progressive Liberal Party? I mean, we've talked about him, within the trade union. We've talked about his time as Speaker, but what was he like very quickly within the party itself?
Well, again, like I said, team player. And if someone wanted, and obviously in politics there are many games that are played, internal party politics and that sort of thing. But what everyone knew about Cliff was that you couldn't ask him to do something that he did not believe in.
So he had to believe in it in order for it to get done. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I want to thank you for your commentary in here. Now we're going to go to Zion Baptist Church, corner of East and Shirley Streets, where Sir Cliff was a member for 50 plus years, where the state funeral is about to take place. Our Shanique Miller is a part of the broadcast this morning. She's been posted outside of the church as the body of Sir Cliff family dignitaries have arrived. Shanique, good morning again.
Good morning to you, Jerome, once again. Of course, dignitaries are continuing to arrive. We have Prime Minister Ingram and many members of Parliament, members of the opposition, led by the Honourable Perry Christie, already seated here in church, here at Zion Baptist Church. Sir Clifford's body is yet to be rolled in to the edifice here at Zion Baptist, but as you can see, dignitaries are continuing to arrive. Certainly the family members are getting ready to come in as well. And what is remarkable, there you see on your screen, the wife of the Prime Minister there between Prime Minister Ingram and Deputy Prime Minister Brent Simonet, and a host of other members of Parliament and Cabinet Ministers, as well as members of the Judiciary, Royal Bahamas Defence Force, and just a host of other people. What I found so impressive was the hundreds of people that lined the route from Bay Street to Shirley Street, and even right now, as you look on your screen, you see so many just across the street trying to get their own glimpse of history as we say goodbye to the country's fourth Governor General, Sir Clifford Darling. Now, his body will be brought in momentarily. Members of the family are in those stretch limousines that you see in front of the church here on Shirley Street, and they will just come here right now. Of course, I'm being joined by Kalolitha Lockhart, a long-standing member here at Zion Baptist Church. This is going to be, as you put it, a Baptist funeral. Sir Clifford is going to be rolled into the songs that he no doubt worshipped to in the many, many years that he attended Zion. And for example, this song, what did this mean to him, for example?
I'm sure it meant a great deal, Shanique. We have gathered this morning for a Baptist worship experience. Sir Clifford was Baptist at heart, a devout Baptist who loved and served his God. Whenever the doors of our church are open, it is for worship of God Almighty. And this morning we will do exactly that. The songs that are being sung, most of them are songs which Sir Clifford himself would have requested. He would have led these songs as he was being ministered to by our current pastor and leadership when they visited with him in hospital or at his bedside.
Wonderful. Of course, you hear this song, "The Lord is My Shepherd," being sung by the Zion Baptist Choir here as they prepare to get the state funeral of Sir Clifford started. It's running a few minutes behind, but it's worth it. I mean, this is a man who fought for so many in the country, referring to the general strike of 1958, when after that period ushered in rights for taxi drivers and so that they can be able to have a better living and provide for their families. There you saw a moment ago Chief Justice Sir Michael Barnett, of course, mourners here coming in, and just a number of people, family, friends, well-wishers, just coming in to hear at this 100-seat cathedral, 1,000-seat cathedral, coming in just to sort of have their bit and their time here, just to say a final farewell to Sir Clifford. And there is former Governor General Sir Arthur Hanna, a number of other people. But talk about Sir Clifford and the role he played in this ministry.
It is safe to say that Sir Clifford, our brother darling, was a man for all seasons. He has attracted persons of all walks of life who come to worship with us today in recognition of his contribution to this local assembly. We are the richer as a congregation because Sir Clifford was a part of us. We honor his memory this morning. Our choir, about 60 voices, they are singing their hearts out. They started from 10:15 this morning singing to those who already assembled in the sanctuary to give God praise and thanks on this day.
Of course, the media is well represented here. There are several stations throughout the church here for various media houses to provide the coverage that we need to provide for the state funeral. Entering the church right now is the family of Sir Clifford. They're his daughters, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, of course, making their way into the sanctuary here to bid a final farewell to their grandfather, to their father, their uncle, Lady Darling, to her husband.
Yes. They are members of, many of them are members of this local assembly. I know that a number of his children worship at our sister church, the Mount Moriah Baptist Church. They have been members there for years. So this is a time of mourning. It's a time of fellowship for us as a people. I do want to say that, as Baptists, we can expect a Baptist worship experience. One of the things that you might know, for example, is that unlike in other parishes, other congregations, we believe in the centrality of the Word of God, and everything in our service points to the preaching, the proclamation of God's Word. Other denominations may have the Eucharist or the Holy Communion as their central point. You will not see that as our central point this morning. The Word of God, which will be proclaimed by our pastor, the Reverend T.G. Morrison, will be the focal point.
Lady Darling, Lady Ingrid Darling, is sitting there along with other members of the family, and I'm very close with the family. I know them very well. Several members, daughters and grandchildren, I know very well and are close friends with them, and certainly join them this morning as they mourn their loved one and also wish him a final farewell. Now we're going to talk about the service, what's expected to come this morning here on the program, the order of the service. Just sort of give us a rundown of what's expected.
The chief worshiper, the liturgist, will be our own Reverend Anthony Sampson, who is our youth minister, full-time associate minister here this morning here at Zion. He is going to lead in worship. And of course our choir under the direction of Sister Jenny Mae Cox, Minister of Music, who will be presenting special music. We can expect to hear from the opening sentences from the Reverend Dr. C.B. Moss, the pastor of Mount Olive Baptist Church, and from Pastor Richard Pinder, the assistant pastor at Bahamas Faith Ministries. We're going to be hearing from the president of the Christian Council. Members are all gathered here to show a word of solidarity and support and sympathy for the Darling family.
And of course, from the government side, as far as government goes, and not necessarily the present administration, but certainly the Governor General, Sir Arthur Folks,
Yes,
will
he
bring
will be
remarks.
making remarks, yes.
Yeah, and the Prime Minister Ingram will not bring remarks here at the state funeral for Sir Clifford Darling. He instead he has a tribute in the program, and it's really a nice tribute to read. You know, family members shared with me that Prime Minister Ingram was quite fond of Sir Clifford Darling. In fact, he visited him on several occasions before he became ill, and certainly during his illness. But certainly he would visit with Sir Clifford on numerous times, from time to time, and just sit and talk over old times and share stories and trade stories and of course just to sort of see how he was doing. And they enjoyed that special relationship, and family members tell me that was something that they always prided and cherished whenever the Prime Minister would show up and spend time with their dad or their granddad. And there you have the members of the government sitting there. You see Prime Minister Ingram in front having a chat and a smile with his wife, and senators in the back. Of course, that's the Attorney General, and many other persons here from government and civic religion, certainly family members and persons who attended the church here at Zion, many coming just to pay respect to a nation builder, somebody who can qualify as one of the fathers of the nation in certain respects, and certainly somebody who's paid his dues for us now to be enjoying many of the liberties that we do enjoy.
It is a tight fit for us this morning, Shanique, in the sanctuary, because as you explained, there's so many persons who want to come. As you know, this is a state funeral by invitation only, and so we really had a hard time with our membership who wanted to be a part of the homegoing service for Brother Darling.
And certainly he would have wanted the service to be held at the place that he spent more than 5 decades worshiping. And so many people may have wondered perhaps why not another edifice, but he wanted to go home to the place that he called home for so many years.
That's right. This is his home church, and he would have it no other way.
If we can just sort of draw back in reference to some of the highlights of Sir Clifford here in this ministry, and just the role that he played in even sort of supporting various pastors as they came through.
We can talk about the common touch that Sir Clifford, our Brother Darling, always exhibited. He was a man who served very actively on our usher board. I had the chance to reflect just on last evening with one of our deacons, Deacon Sheila Strawn, who talked about how very faithful Brother Darling was. She talked about how, though he was humble in stature, he was someone who brought a great deal of finesse wherever he led, wherever he worshipped. I remember hearing about how he, as an usher, would make sure that ushers were properly attired, that they wore gloves, etc., to ensure that the work was done properly.
There you have Sir Arthur Folks, Governor General, present, now being escorted into the sanctuary here at Zion Baptist Church, East and Shirley Streets. Of course, Sir Arthur will bring remarks here at the service.
Yes, he certainly will, and so will the leader of the opposition, the Honourable Perry Christie. He will also be bringing remarks this morning.
The service is set to last about roughly, I guess, an hour or so, and of course, it'll be culminated by a sermon. I don't know if I call it that, but a sermon by Reverend T.G. Morrison,
who would have been quite fond of the late Brother Darling, and they exchanged many last words, so we can expect a word from the throne room, as we say as Baptists, on this occasion.
Of course, the members of the audience now standing to welcome in Their Excellencies, the Governor General, Sir Arthur Folks, and Lady Folks, as they are escorted to their seats.
The Chief of Protocols, Miss Elise Delancey, is certainly filling in this morning. She's had quite her hands full, coordinating between the House of Assembly, the procession here, and now in the sanctuary. Following this morning's service, we will be going on to the cemetery. Oh yes, and now we are preparing to receive the body of the late Sir Clifford.
And of course, it's being brought in now by senior members of the Royal Bahamas Police Force and Royal Bahamas Defense Force, as they begin a slow march up the stairs of Zion Baptist Church, and will bring Sir Clifford's body to the center front of the church here. and the service will begin. And now Sir Clifford Darling's body is now in the sanctuary here at Zion Baptist Church. The process here is a very intricate one. What happens? He's received by Pastor Morrison.
Yes, the body will be received, and we will begin the procession of ministers, the clergy, up to actually begin this morning's service. This is certainly a momentous occasion for all of us as the color party prepares to, for the last time, escort the mortal remains of Sir Clifford up to the front area of the church, where the body will remain during the eulogy and during the entire service. Opening sentences will be presented by persons who are not normally worshippers at Zion Eastern Shirley, and following that, our local minister, the Reverend Anthony Sampson, will take center stage as he leads us in worship on this occasion. It is going to be a worship experience on this morning. So many well-wishers have gathered just to pay their last respects, to say goodbye. As we mentioned earlier, he has touched so many for so many years.